Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Brunswick, Maine. My name is Glenn Williams, and I'm a member of our Board of Trustees. Today we have a guest minister. Reverend Gail Stratton is a Unitarian Universalist community minister affiliated with the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Oxford, Mississippi. She serves on the steering team for lynching memorialization in Lafayette County, and she's working with a group of activists to bring down the local Confederate statue. Before the pandemic, she volunteered with Mid-South immigration advocates to provide information to people seeking asylum for their credible fear interview. She's a retired biologist and delights in walks, gardening, and mushroom hunting. We hope you enjoy the service.
Dear ones, like many of you, so many of you, I draw energy from being in relationship and from being with the people I love and bringing together the people I love. And of course, we now find ourselves in a time of great longing and sadness as we are not able to gather together in the usual ways. But what a gift to have this technology that allows us to see and hear one another. My friend Gail Stratton, whose words we will hear this morning, is someone I have been gathering with over Skype just about every Friday morning for many years, many years. We met in seminary in Chicago, and we live in two different parts of the country, and so even before COVID, most of our time together has been spent online. So we too are living proof that it is possible to form and maintain and even nurture deep connection, even when we cannot be together in space and time. And so this morning, I get to bring together many of my beloveds as we welcome Reverend Dr. Gail Stratton into our sacred space. Gail is a biologist and a Unitarian Universalist minister who makes her home in northern Mississippi with her wife, Pat, who has also become a great friend to Dale and me. When Gail and I first became friends, and then we decided that our spouses should meet. And after that first meal that the four of us spent together, Pat stood up and said, "Well, that's it then, friends for life. You're stuck with us." And it's true, happily. Gail has made countless phone calls on behalf of UU the Vote during this election season. She has been working for racial justice and for the rights of LGBTQI+ folks. And she has volunteered with asylum seekers, helping them to understand the very complicated legal immigration system. Basically, if someone is hurting and being treated unfairly, Gail shows up to help. It is so good to welcome her here, and she has been looking forward to meeting all of you after hearing me talk about how wonderful you are. So come, let us be together in worship, and let us sing together our opening song, "Morning Has Broken."
Good morning to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Brunswick. I bring greetings from Oxford, Mississippi, and I'm always happy to connect with other congregations. I have fond memories of the 1 year that I spent at the University of Maine in Orono, where I started graduate school. And I'm grateful to you this morning, and I'm grateful for the invitation to join you for your worship service and for the invitation from Reverend Justine Sullivan. I've known Reverend Justine for many years now, and there is no one better suited for ministry than she is. And you may not have heard this, but just this last week, she has been granted final fellowship in the Unitarian Universalist Association. Congratulations, Justine. It's an honor to be here. I would like to bring a reading this morning from one of our wise elders of our culture, Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen, from her book, Kitchen Table Wisdom. Her writings grounded me when I was doing my chaplaincy work, and she speaks of woundedness and healing. Wounding and healing are not opposites. They're part of the same thing. It is our wounds that enable us to be compassionate with the wounds of others. It is our limitations that make us kind to the limitations of other people. And it is our loneliness that helps us to find other people or even know that they are alone with an illness. I think I have served people perfectly with parts of myself I used to be ashamed of. Rachel Naomi Remen. The story for all ages this morning is called The Dervish in the Ditch. It comes from the Sufi tradition, which is the mystic tradition of the Muslim faith. A dervish was one of a religious order who took vows of poverty and were known for their asceticism and also for their whirling, ecstatic dances. I invite you to exercise your imagination with this story. Close your eyes if you'd like. Once upon a time, in a land far away to the east, a dervish holy man and their student were walking from one village to the next on a dusty road. Suddenly, they saw a huge cloud of dust rising up in the distance. They could see billows of dust. And they stood and stared at this big cloud of dust and noticed that that cloud of dust was moving. And watching it closely, they could see that a grand carriage was being pulled by 6 horses, and those 6 horses were moving at a gallop. The driver was urging the horses on, and there was clearly a very rich person in that carriage. The dervish and the young student stared at this and realized that very quickly this carriage was coming upon them. And almost at the last minute, they both jumped into the ditch at the same time as this carriage roared past them. With the pounding of the hooves and the rumbling of the carriage, the whole earth was shaking with the movement of this carriage. They weren't hurt, thankfully. And they both got up from the ditch, covered with grass and with mud, just looking in amazement and also being appalled at what just happened. And the student jumped up and raised his hand and was about to curse the driver of that carriage. And the teacher jumped in front of him, and before the student could speak, the teacher spoke and said, "May your deepest desires be fulfilled." Well, the student looked at him, said, "What? They just about killed us. They just about ran us off the road, and we could have died." And the teacher said to him, "If their deepest desires have been met, do you think they would treat a holy man and a student in such an abysmal way?" The student was speechless, and they continued on their quiet way to the next village. Now, without thinking about this too hard, I'd like to invite you to think about, who do you identify in that story? Who do you identify with in that story? Is it the student? Is it the teacher? Is it the carriage driver that was driving this carriage? Or perhaps you were the rich man in the carriage? Just think about it for a few minutes.
Fear at the Table by Tina L. Porter. We gave fear the place at the head of the table and then wondered why everyone got so mad and started buying guns and decided the world was going to hell. We forgot to look at the whole table. Who else sat there staring into their napkins, resting on their laps, afraid to make eye contact out of fear that fear would mark them, too? And who else was sitting at fear's elbows, amplifying his message and scaring the women who stood holding the serving plates because they had no voice at this table? They, at the elbows of fear, pound the table with meaty fists, then move in ways to reveal that they are concealed carriers. But this is not intimidation. This is freedom. Freedom. You keep using this word, as Indigo Lantoya might say. I do not think it means what you think it means. And here we are, gawkers at the spectacle of fear and his minions, wondering, why are they so scared of brown folk with voices raised up in song born out of freedom promised, freedom deferred, and freedom denied. And we wonder fear and his minions never learned the lessons, not only of history, but of Star Trek and young adult dystopian novels and zombie shows have taught us. Fear will silence a people only so long. Oppression is a petri dish for creative thought and action that will win in the end, because the soul flies and sings like a dove and knows none are free until all are free, even fear.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
The second reading I have is also from Rachel Naomi Remen from the Kitchen Table Wisdom. The healing of our present woundedness may lie in recognizing and reclaiming the capacity we all have to heal each other, and the enormous power in the simplest of human relationships, the strength of a touch, the blessing of forgiveness, the grace of someone else taking you just as you are and finding in you something unique and wonderful. Everyone alive has suffered. It is the wisdom gained from our wounds and from our own experiences of suffering that makes us able to heal. Becoming an expert turns out to be less important than remembering and trusting the wholeness in myself and everyone else. Expertise cures, but wounded people can best be healed by other wounded people. Only other wounded people can understand what is needed for the healing of suffering is compassion, not expertise. Please join me in a moment of stillness for a time of meditation and prayer. If you're comfortable, close your eyes, adjust yourself so that you can sit quietly for just a minute. Blessed Spirit of life and love, God of many names and beyond all names, hold us in our woundedness so that we, in turn, can hold others. Help us to see beyond the surface of the human needs and desires of those around us. Help us to love ourselves honestly, forthrightly, gently, tenderly, and with loving kindness. Help us to love others honestly, forthrightly, gently, tenderly, and with loving kindness. Help us to be open to the gifts of beauty around us that show up in so many ways. And may we reach out. May we see one another. May we hold our deepest needs and the deepest needs of others. Blessed be. Amen. Ashe.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love, a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Share a rose, share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I know, that I know. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of hope, a rose in the winter time. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love, a rose in the winter time. When hope is hard to find, a rose in the winter time. When hope is hard to
Embrace hope, acknowledge fear, choose love. Embrace hope. We say it again and again. Even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, sometimes beyond our imagination, this is our faith. Another world is possible, not somewhere else, not another lifetime, but right here and now, for us and for all of us. Reverend Ashley Horan. Another world is possible. I deeply believe that. I've seen glimpses of it in all kinds of places. I've seen it where people, especially people of color, have made a way out of no way for centuries. I've seen it where LGBTQ people coming from small towns in the South know they have worth even though there's nothing in their lives that affirms that for them. I've seen it in the record numbers of people turning out to vote and the record numbers of people turning out to protest when we had the death of George Floyd. But hope is not blind optimism, says Barack Obama, not ignoring the enormity of the task ahead or the roadblocks that stand in our path. It's not sitting on the sidelines or shirking from a fight. Hope is inside that insists, despite all evidence to the contrary, that something better awaits us if we have the courage to reach for it and to work for it and fight for it. Hope is the belief that destiny will not be written for us, but by us, by people who will not settle for the content of the world as it is, but will remake it in the way that it ought to be. That vision of a better world is so very important. Hope is of the heart, but it's very much connected to our minds, our wills, and our intention. Hope is what we long for, and intention is what moves us in that direction. We hope for a more just world, and we work to make that happen. We hope for more people to be respected, and we work to make that happen as well. Unitarians and Universalists and Unitarian Universalists have lifted up over centuries now what could and should be possible. From our work on the abolition of slavery, to the suffrage of women, to voting rights in the 1960s, and in our time facing white supremacy. In each time frame, people worked from within the mindset of that time, imperfectly, always with constraints, but with the idea that a better world is possible. We long for that. We have hope for a better world, and we set our intention of doing that in our lives. I've received much from our faith, much challenge, much love, and yes, even much heartache, but I think this is the most important thing I've learned from Unitarian Universalists: clarity about the importance of intention. To have intention is to be actively deciding how we want to be in the world, collectively and individually. What do we want to do with our one precious life? Asked Mary Oliver. Intention shows up in the centrality of our principles and also in the clarity of covenants and mission statements. I see that UU Church of Brunswick has a very clear mission statement. Bravo on that. And I see that you are restarting chalice circles, which are opportunities to listen to each other. Bravo on that as well. Principles and covenant are like guideposts along the way. Sometimes they are out in the distance, but still visible, showing us the way in this complex world where we sometimes stub our toes, bump our knees, and even bump into things. Embracing hope is of the heart and of the mind, where we can bring our whole selves, and wholeness certainly is something I long for. Embrace hope, acknowledge fear, choose love. But fear is alive and well in our world, as you well know. And there are not many who share my eco-egalitarian view of the world, where I truly believe there's enough for everybody and we can take care of each other and we could do it sustainably. There are those who because of greed and privilege have lost touch with their common humanity. And there are many in power in this country and across the world who do not share my worldview that all people deserve respect. We live in a country where in 1,000 different ways people are told they are not worthy of respect and not worthy of self-determination. Some people, motivated by greed, use the tactic of fear to motivate others. Fear's pronoun is singular. I've got to watch out for me and mine. Look out, mate, says a cartoon where a person is sitting at a table with two other men, plate full of 100 cookies. The other two people at the table, one person has a plate has 2 cookies, another person has 0 cookies. Look out, mate, says the man with 100 cookies to the person who has 2. That immigrant is about to take one of your cookies. Love's pronoun is plural. We're in this together. And together we can grow things that will blossom even in a time of drought. Reverend Kathleen Mateague. We live in a time when one only needs to open up the paper or the computer, the email, to know that there's much to fear. Climate change, affecting storms, affecting fires, causing flooding. A global pandemic that in this country is spreading like wildfire with devastating results. A president who would rather golf than govern. There's a very long list. In short, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, we live in a time that is complex and fraught. And I suspect you feel that here in Maine as I feel it in Mississippi. We live in a time of both fear and hope. So we need to acknowledge fear, both in ourselves and also know that it is play in others and that it's being used as a tactic for fundraising every single day. But as we heard earlier from Louise in the reading, fear does not deserve to be at the head of the table, simply acknowledged. When fear clutches at our hearts and our minds, we move to the 3 F's. Fight or flight, and the third one is freeze. When you feel those feelings of flight, or putting up your dukes and fighting, or just simply freezing, that is fear working in your body. When fear takes hold, we move from instinct, not from our rational thoughts. Sometimes that's good. There are places where that is appropriate. Okay? If you're being jumped on by a mountain lion, the freeze or the flight may be really, really important. Okay? But in our complex society, we generally need our rational thoughts more than those 3 F's. So to back down from fear, we need to activate what's called our parasympathetic nervous system. This is the part of our system that activates calming, and it connects with our heart, our lungs, our gut, our muscles. And one very good way to do this is slow, careful, intentional breathing. There's the word intentional again. My Tai Chi teacher said years ago that 10 slow breaths was his go-to whenever he was feeling off-kilter. And there's actually a useful way to remind yourself to do that. And that is to literally trace your fingers with the up breath and a down breath. Up breath, in breath, and an out breath. Trace one finger up with an in breath. Trace it down with an out breath. Join me now to do this. In breath and out breath. In breath and out breath. And then we move to the other hand with an in breath and an out breath. And an in breath and an out breath. 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 Now the beauty of this is that not only slows our heart and our mind and our gut and our lungs, not only does it activate our calming, but in doing both sides of your body, you're activating both sides of your brain. You're activating the analytical part of your brain and the creative part of your brain. And when both of those are activated, we are at our best. We are at our best. We can imagine different things and we can imagine how to get to where we need to be. There's wholeness in that. There's wholeness in that. And we want to bring wholeness to whatever we do, especially to the next thing, which is choosing love. Embrace hope, acknowledge fear, choose love. So how do we choose love in a time like this? How do we choose love? Remember, fear's pronoun is singular. I've got to watch out for me and mine. Love's pronoun is plural. We're in this together. Each of these elements that I'm lifting up today, hope, fear, and love, each of these is part of who we are, collectively and individually. Each of these has a basis not only in our biology, but also in our deep history, our family history, our cultural history, and even our evolutionary history. We are deeply connected. Being able to choose is one of the most precious traits humans have. On so many levels, in so many ways, it is what makes us human, in big ways and in little ways. So I invite you at this time in history, in this town, in this country, to choose love, to side with love, to challenge yourself and others to live love. It may be big ways and it may be small ways, but each day it may be one additional thing. Why? Because it's who we are. It's because it's what we long to be. It's because the world needs us at our best. I admit that I've struggled with loving the world these days and some of the people in it. It is hard. In a conversation recently, I said to a friend, I just don't understand how these people think. And there seems to be a lot of, quote unquote, these people that I don't understand. And this friend said to me, is understanding a necessary first step? I thought. And as I thought, I had to say, well, that's a good question. It's a good way to buy yourself some time when you're trying to understand or think through a response. Okay, is understanding a necessary first step? Well, for me, understanding is a bridge. Gosh, I understand how you feel. Or if I try to temper it a little bit, it might be, as best I can, I understand what you're going through. It's a bridge I like to build. And often it's the first bridge I build. But is it the only bridge to be built between one person and another? What other ways can we build bridges across our divides? Brene Brown is one of my favorite authors, and she puts it this way. In doing a book tour this last year, she said she's been in front of over 25,000 people. Everywhere she has gone, across the country, she's asked this question. Raise your hand if you deeply love someone whose vote you found completely incomprehensible. She says 95% of the people raise their hand. And then she asks, how many of you want to be permanently disconnected from these people? And zero, none, raise their hand. So she says this, defy the sorting, move in, lean in, be curious, ask the question, how are we connected? How can we be connected? Or a similar question, what would a bridge look like between me and thee? What if we had bridges as the metaphor of our country right now instead of walls? Building bridges. In the anthem that we just heard from General Assembly, Come Sing a Song With Me, I know I'm missing singing with others. I know I long for that. Singing creates a bridge. And of course, in a pandemic, we have to find other ways to sing together. And Brunswick has found ways to do that. The GA Choir certainly found ways to do that. It is time to engage our creativity and find new ways to do things that we love. Come walk in rain with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. So I invite you to think about bridges in little ways and big ways. Walking a dog can be a bridge. Acknowledging another's pain can be a bridge. A smile can be a bridge. Sometimes it just takes one person to reach out, and a momentary bridge is still a bridge. Remember, the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear. And we understand some things about fear. Fear's pronoun is singular. I've got to look out for me and mine. Love's pronoun is plural. We're in this together. We are in this together. May love's pronoun be plural, and may we remember we are always in this together through our deep connections, through our love. Embrace hope. Acknowledge fear, choose love. Blessed be Ashe and Amen. And now please join me in singing hymn number 134, Our World is One World.